Sarah Martinez slammed her car door harder than necessary, the sound echoing through the empty parking garage. 20 years. 20 years she had given to Apex Biotech, and they had thrown her away like yesterday's trash. The security guard had watched her pack her desk into a cardboard box, making sure she didn't steal any company secrets. As if she would want anything from those corporate vultures now. The rain started as she drove home, matching her mood perfectly. Her windshield wipers squeaked against the glass, and she realized she had been meaning to replace them for months. Now she had all the time in the world, didn't she? No job, no purpose, just a 45-year-old biochemist with outdated skills and a mortgage to pay. She took the long way home, not ready to face her empty apartment. The route wound through the industrial district, past abandoned warehouses and forgotten dreams. That's when she saw the smoke. Black clouds billowed from an old textile factory that had been closed for decades. Sarah slowed down, squinting through the rain. The smart thing would be to call 911 and drive on. But something made her pull over. Maybe it was the strange color of the smoke, tinged with an iridescent quality that reminded her of oil on water. Maybe she just didn't care about being smart anymore. The factory's chain-link fence had a gap wide enough to squeeze through. Sarah found herself doing exactly that, her business suit catching on the rusty metal. Inside, the smoke grew thicker, but it didn't smell like a normal fire. There was something almost sweet about it, like burnt sugar mixed with ozone. Following the smoke to its source, she entered the main factory floor. What she saw there made her question her sanity. In the center of the massive space, surrounded by old textile machinery, lay a creature that should not exist. It was easily 30 feet long, covered in scales that shifted from deep purple to midnight blue. Wings, torn and bleeding a substance that glowed faintly green, were spread at awkward angles. A dragon. An actual, living dragon. The creature's eyes opened as she approached, and Sarah found herself looking into orbs of liquid gold. Intelligence burned there, along with pain and something that might have been fear. One of its legs was trapped under a fallen beam, and Sarah could see where the scales had been scraped away, revealing flesh that pulsed with an inner light. "This is impossible," she whispered. But her scientist's mind was already cataloging details. The scales had a crystalline structure. The blood, if it was blood, seemed to phosphoresce. The creature's breath came in short gasps, and each exhale produced those strange, sweet-smelling smoke clouds. The dragon made a sound somewhere between a whine and a musical note, its eye fixed on her, pleading. Sarah looked at the beam pinning its leg. She had no chance of lifting it alone, but there was an old forklift in the corner. 20 years of safety training at Apex had included forklift certification, one of those pointless requirements that might actually serve a purpose now. The forklift started on the third try, coughing to life with a diesel roar. Sarah maneuvered it carefully, aware that one wrong move could further injure the creature. The dragon seemed to understand what she was doing. It remained still, only its eyes tracking her movements. The beam lifted slowly, and the dragon pulled its leg free with a sound that made Sarah's heart ache. The injury looked bad, flesh torn and that glowing blood seeping steadily. Without thinking, Sarah stripped off her suit jacket and pressed it against the wound. The blood was warm, almost hot, and tingled against her skin where it soaked through the fabric. "We need to get you somewhere safe," she said, feeling foolish for talking to it. But the dragon's eyes showed understanding. It tried to stand, faltered, and Sarah found herself supporting a weight that should have crushed her. Instead, the creature felt strangely light, as if it existed only partially in this reality. Her pickup truck was parked outside. There was no logical way a 30-foot dragon would fit in the bed of a Ford F-150, but logic had apparently taken the day off. The dragon seemed to compress as she helped it toward the vehicle, folding in on itself until it was merely the size of a large horse. It settled into the truck bed with a grateful rumble. Sarah drove home in a daze, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds to confirm she wasn't hallucinating. The dragon remained curled in the back, its wounds still seeping that ethereal blood. Her apartment building had a private garage, thank God. She couldn't imagine explaining this to her neighbors. Getting the dragon up to her third-floor apartment proved easier than expected. It compressed further in the stairwell, now no larger than a Great Dane. Once inside her living room, it expanded slightly, finding a comfortable size that didn't knock over her furniture. Sarah's medical knowledge was limited to human biochemistry, but she did her best. She cleaned the wounds with saline solution, noting how the dragon's blood seemed to evaporate rather than dry. The torn scales worried her most. They appeared to be regrowing, but slowly, and she could see exposed nerve endings that made her wince in sympathy. "What are you?" she asked, settling onto her couch with a cup of tea. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. The dragon tilted its head, and suddenly Sarah felt a presence in her mind. Not words exactly, but concepts, images, feelings. She saw stars she didn't recognize, planets with impossible colors, and beings of pure energy. She felt the dragon's journey, a desperate flight from something terrible. A crash landing on an unfamiliar world, Earth. It had been hiding for weeks, wounded and afraid, until the factory fire, started by its own fevered body, had revealed its location. "You're not from here," Sarah said unnecessarily. The dragon projected agreement, along with gratitude for her help. It had expected to die under that beam, just another casualty in a war she couldn't begin to understand. Over the next 3 days, Sarah found herself in the strangest routine of her life. She bought raw meat from the butcher, telling him she had adopted a very large dog. The dragon, she had started thinking of it as Echo for the way its thoughts resonated in her mind, healed with remarkable speed. The scales regrew, the wounds closed, and its strength returned. Echo shared more of its story through their mental connection. Its people, the Draconians, were an ancient race that had achieved a perfect balance of organic evolution and technological advancement. They were explorers, scientists, artists, but they had encountered something in the depths of space, a force that consumed entire civilizations. The Devourers, Echo called them, though the concept it projected was more complex than any human word could capture. Sarah found herself sharing too, telling Echo about her work at Apex, her research into xenobiological compounds, ironically enough, and her dreams of making discoveries that would change the world. She laughed bitterly at that last part. "Instead, I got downsized because some MBA decided my department wasn't profitable enough." Echo projected confusion at the concept of reducing a being's worth to numerical values. Its people measured value in knowledge gained, beauty created, connections formed. Sarah felt a pang of longing for such a society. On the 4th day, everything changed. Sarah woke to Echo standing at her window, every muscle tense. Through their connection, she felt its alarm. They were coming. Not the Devourers, but others. The rescue ship Echo had called for in its dying moments before Sarah had found it. But something was wrong. There should have been 1 ship, not 4. And the signals were all different. The news confirmed what Echo feared. 4 massive vessels had appeared in Earth's orbit, each one different in design, each one broadcasting messages in languages no human could understand. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this was first contact or an invasion. Echo's distress grew. 1 ship belonged to its people. Yes, but the others? The sleek silver disk could only be Zephyrian, longtime enemies of the Draconians. The angular black fortress was Mechanist, beings who had long ago abandoned organic form, and the fourth, a writhing mass that hurt to look at through telescopes, was something Echo didn't recognize but feared instinctively. "They all detected my distress call," Echo explained through their link. "Old grudges, new opportunities. They've come for me, but finding a new world, undefended and rich in resources." The implications hung heavy between them. Sarah watched the news coverage, saw world leaders scrambling for responses, military forces mobilizing uselessly against technology centuries beyond their comprehension. She felt Echo's guilt, its certainty that it had doomed her world by its very presence. "No," Sarah said firmly. "You were dying. You called for help. What happens next isn't on you." She thought of her 20 years at Apex, developing compounds to enhance human potential, to push the boundaries of what was possible. Besides, maybe it's time humanity had a wake-up call. The first contact came 12 hours later, not with governments or military leaders, but with Echo directly. The Dragon's communication array, healed now, activated with a harmonious chime. Multiple voices spoke at once, translated through Echo's connection to Sarah. The Draconians demanded their lost explorer's return. The Zephyrians claimed Echo as a prisoner of war, citing conflicts Sarah couldn't begin to understand. The Mechanists proposed dissection, arguing that organic technological fusion like Echo's could advance their collective, and the fourth voice, when it came, simply hungered. The world watched as arguments played out in orbit, energy weapons powered up, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. 4 civilizations, each with their own agenda, each capable of destroying humanity as an afterthought to their real conflict. Sarah looked at Echo, saw her own determination reflected in those golden eyes. She thought of her ruined career, her expertise in xenobiology, her planet standing on the brink. An idea formed, wild and desperate and perfectly human. "You said your people value knowledge above all," she said to Echo, "and the Zephyrians prize innovation. The Mechanists want advancement, and that fourth thing, whatever it is, it hungers for something new." She stood up, energy coursing through her. "What if we give them all what they want?" Echo projected confusion. But Sarah was already moving, pulling out her laptop, accessing her backed-up research files from Apex. 20 years of work on human potential, on pushing boundaries, on finding the connections between the possible and the impossible. "Every species thinks they're unique," she said, typing furiously. "But humans, we're adaptable. We survive. We take the impossible and make it mundane, and we're really, really good at making deals." She looked up at the sky through her window, at the 4 ships that held Earth's fate. Then she looked at Echo, her impossible friend, her bridge between worlds. It's time to show them what humanity can do. The United Nations building had never seen such chaos. Sarah stood in the main assembly hall, Echo at her side in a compressed form that still drew stares and whispers. They had arrived 3 hours ago, after Sarah's video message to the world had gone viral in minutes. A human woman with a dragon, offering to mediate between Earth and 4 alien civilizations. The security forces hadn't known whether to arrest her or escort her in. In the end, the Secretary General himself had made the call. "You're insane," Director Harrison from NASA said for the 5th time. "We're talking about species that could obliterate us with a thought, and you want to negotiate?" Sarah pulled up her research on the main screen, her fingers steady despite the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. "Not negotiate. Collaborate. Look at this." The screen filled with her work from Apex, equations, and molecular diagrams that had gotten her labeled as too theoretical, too ambitious. "For 20 years, I've been studying xenobiological adaptation, how organisms change when exposed to foreign compounds, foreign environments. Humans are remarkably good at it," General Thompson from the Joint Chiefs scoffed. "Adaptation takes millions of years, Dr. Martinez. We have hours, maybe days before those ships decide to stop talking and start shooting. Normal adaptation, yes. Sarah switched screens, showing brain scans she had taken of herself over the past few days. But this is what happened to me after exposure to draconian blood. The room went silent as they absorbed the implications. Her neural activity had increased by 30%. New pathways had formed, creating connections that shouldn't exist. Their blood doesn't just glow. It carries information, genetic templates, evolutionary possibilities. And human DNA is unusually receptive to it. Echo projected confirmation through their link, along with surprise. Its people had never encountered a species so naturally adaptable. Most beings had rigid genetic structures, locked evolutionary paths. Humans were chaos-made flesh, their DNA ready to change, to become whatever they needed to survive. The Secretary General, an elderly man from Ghana named Kwame Asante, leaned forward. You're suggesting we use alien biology to upgrade humanity. I'm suggesting we show them what humans do best, Sarah replied. We adapt. We learn. We take what others have and make it better. Every one of those species up there has something unique. The Draconians have organic technology fusion. The Zephyrians have mastery over energy states. The Mechanists have ditched biology entirely for pure information processing. And that fourth species... She paused, remembering Echo's fear. We don't know what they have, but they've survived in deep space for eons. They must have something. And they'll just share this with us? Director Harrison's skepticism was palpable. Out of the goodness of their alien hearts? Sarah smiled, the expression sharp. No, because we have something they need. Something they don't even know they need yet. She gestured to the assembly hall filled with representatives from every nation on Earth. Diversity. Not just genetic, but cultural, ideological, experiential. Look at them. 4 ships, 4 species, and they're ready to destroy each other over one dragon. They're stagnant, locked in their ways. We're not. The debate raged for 2 more hours. But Sarah could see minds changing. Echo helped, projecting images of its civilization's stagnation, their perfect society that had stopped truly innovating centuries ago. The other species were similar, each convinced of their superiority, each blind to their limitations. Finally, Secretary General Asante called for quiet. Dr. Martinez, if we agree to this plan, to presenting humanity as a collaborative force, what exactly are you proposing? Sarah had been waiting for this. She pulled up her final presentation, months of theoretical work that Apex had deemed too speculative. The Human Integration Protocol. We invite representatives from each species to Earth, not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners. We offer our genetic adaptability, our diverse perspectives, our ability to synthesize disparate technologies and ideas. In exchange, they share their knowledge, their capabilities. And if they refuse? General Thompson asked. If they see us as nothing but primitives to be conquered or ignored? Sarah's eyes met his steadily. Then we show them what primitives can do. Humans have gone from horse-drawn carriages to space flight in less than a century. We split the atom decades after discovering it existed. We're not just adaptable, General. We're fast. Dangerously fast. Echo projected agreement, along with a memory. Its first glimpse of human technology, crude by draconian standards but advancing at a pace that defied understanding. Its people had taken millennia to achieve what humans had done in decades. The vote was closer than Sarah had hoped, but it passed. Humanity would extend an invitation to the 4 ships. Not surrender, not defiance, but something uniquely human, an offer to make a deal. The next 72 hours blurred together. Sarah found herself at the center of a hurricane of activity. Scientists from around the world flew in to study her enhanced neural activity. Echo worked with linguists and technologists to establish better communication protocols. The world's best negotiators prepared for a kind of first contact no science fiction had quite imagined. The responses from the ships came simultaneously, as if they had been coordinating or competing. Each agreed to send one representative to the surface, each warning that any treachery would result in immediate retaliation. The meeting was set for the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. Flat, open terrain with nowhere to hide surprises. Sarah stood with Echo and a small delegation of Earth's representatives, watching 4 shuttles descend from the sky. Her enhanced perception, courtesy of her exposure to Echo's blood, let her see details that would have been invisible before. The Draconian shuttle moved like a living thing. The Zephyrian craft bent light around itself. The mechanist vehicle was all angles and impossibilities, and the fourth shuttle didn't quite exist in normal space. It flickered in and out of reality, leaving afterimages that hurt to process. Sarah felt Echo's tension and placed a steadying hand on its scales. The Draconian representative emerged first, and Sarah gasped. It looked like Echo, but older, more elaborate, with scales that contained entire galaxies. It moved with the weight of eons, beautiful and terrible and utterly convinced of its superiority. The Zephyrian appeared as a humanoid figure made of condensed lightning, constantly shifting between energy states. The air around it crackled with potential. The mechanist was a geometric puzzle that rearranged itself with each step, a being of pure information given form. And the fourth. Sarah's enhanced mind struggled to process what she saw. It was absence given form, a hunger shaped vaguely like a person, with eyes that were windows into an empty universe. "I am Sage Calanthor of the Draconian Collective," the dragon spoke, its voice harmonics that bypassed the ears and resonated in the bones. "I have come for our lost child and to assess this world's resources." "I am Flux State Serenity," the Zephyrian crackled. "The Draconians have no claim here. The dragon is a prisoner of war, and this world falls under Zephyrian protection protocols. Designation: Analyzer Prime, the mechanist stated in tones of pure mathematics. Organic disputes are irrelevant. This world shows potential for conversion. Efficiency demands integration into the collective. The fourth being spoke last, and its voice was the sound of dying stars. "I am hunger that walks. I claim the feast." Sarah stepped forward before the assembled Earth delegation could respond. Her enhanced neurons fired in patterns that shouldn't exist, processing alien concepts at superhuman speed. "I'm Dr. Sarah Martinez. I saved Echo's life. By the laws of debt and reciprocity that I know all your species acknowledge, that gives me the right to speak." The 4 beings turned to her with expressions her human brain translated as surprise. Echo had warned her that most species dismissed individuals who hadn't achieved interstellar flight. But the blood bond between her and Echo was visible to their enhanced senses, marking her as something more than purely human. "Speak then, hybrid," Calanthor rumbled. "Though words will not change the outcome." Sarah smiled. "Won't they? Let me tell you what I see. 4 species, each believing yourselves superior, each stagnant in your perfection. The Draconians, so perfect in your harmony that you've forgotten how to truly innovate. The Zephyrians, so evolved beyond physical form that you've lost touch with the messy creativity of organic life. The Mechanists, so efficient that you've calculated away all the beautiful errors that lead to breakthrough. And you," she turned to Hunger That Walks, "so ancient and hungry that you've forgotten what it means to truly taste something new." "You dare," Serenity began, but Sarah cut them off. "I dare because I'm human. We dare things. It's what we do." She gestured to the delegation behind her. "Look at us. Barely a century of powered flight, no unified government. We still fight over resources, ideologies, pieces of dirt. By your standards, we're children playing with fire. Then why should we not simply take what we wish?" Analyzer Prime asked. Because children playing with fire sometimes discover combustion engines, Sarah shot back. Because chaos breeds innovation. Because in our messy, inefficient, gloriously diverse struggle, we create things you've forgotten how to imagine. She pulled out a tablet, one of humanity's crude digital devices, and showed them her work. Not just her research, but the collaborative efforts that had sprung up in the past 3 days. Scientists around the world, working together, building on her discoveries. Artists creating visions of human-alien integration. Engineers designing hybrid technologies. Philosophers exploring new frameworks for multi-species ethics. 3 days, she said. 3 days since you arrived, and look what we've done. Imagine what we could do in 3 years. 3 decades. 3 centuries. Echo stepped forward, adding its voice. I have lived among them. They are crude, yes. Primitive, certainly. But they are also something none of us are anymore. They are becoming. Every day they become something new. What do you propose? Calanthor asked, and Sarah heard the first crack in his certainty. Partnership, not conquest, not submission, but true collaboration. Each of your species has something incredible to offer, and we have something you need, the ability to synthesize, to adapt, to take your separate perfections and create something greater. She gestured to herself, to the changes already happening. I've been exposed to draconian biology for less than a week, and already my neural capacity has increased dramatically. But it hasn't replaced my humanity. It's enhanced it. Imagine what we could become with access to all your technologies, your biologies, your perspectives, and imagine what we could help you become. The mechanists need no becoming, Analyzer Prime stated. We have achieved optimal efficiency. Have you? Sarah challenged. When was the last time you created something purely for the joy of it? When did you last surprise yourself? Efficiency is a tool, not a goal. We humans are spectacularly inefficient, and look what we've created. Art that serves no purpose but beauty. Stories that teach nothing but wonder. Love that defies all logic. She saw something flicker in the mechanist's form. Processing, recalculating. Serenity spoke next. And what of the old conflicts? Draconians and Zephyrians have been enemies for millennia. And humans have been killing each other since we figured out how to sharpen sticks, Sarah replied. Yet here we stand, united in the face of something larger. We're very good at finding common ground when we need to. Sometimes it just takes an outside perspective to show us how stupid our conflicts really are. She turned to Hunger That Walks last. The entity was harder to read, harder to understand. And you? What could we offer the hunger that has devoured so much? The being's void eyes focused on her. You offer flavor, complexity. The others are single notes, perfect but monotone. You are discord resolving into harmony, bitter mixing with sweet. You are interesting. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The desert wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of salt and possibility. Sarah felt the weight of history, the pivot point where everything could change. Calanthor broke the silence. You propose an experiment, using your world as a laboratory for collaborative evolution. I propose a partnership, Sarah corrected. Earth becomes neutral ground. Each species establishes an embassy, shares knowledge, works together. We humans provide the synthesis, the fresh perspectives, the chaotic creativity. You provide the technologies, the perspectives of ancient civilizations, the possibilities we can't even imagine yet. And if we refuse? Analyzer Prime asked. Sarah's smile was pure human audacity. Then you'll have to destroy us, and you'll always wonder what might have been. What innovations died with us? What possibilities you lost because you couldn't see past your own perfection? She felt Echo's pride through their link, along with something else. Hope. For the first time in centuries, the ancient dragon felt hope for something truly new. The four representatives exchanged looks, or what passed for looks among beings of such disparate forms. Sarah saw the moment when the equation shifted, when the potential for something unprecedented outweighed the certainty of conflict. "There must be conditions," Calanthor said finally. "Safeguards. Agreements." "Of course," Sarah agreed. "We're not naive, but we're also not afraid. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We'll survive this too. The question is, will you thrive with us or stagnate without us?" The negotiations began in earnest then, with translators and diplomats taking over. But Sarah had done her part. She had shown them what humanity offered. Not power or technology or resources, but something far more valuable: the ability to change, to adapt, to take the impossible and make it possible. As the sun set over the salt flats, casting impossible colors across the alien shuttles, Sarah leaned against Echo. "Think it will work?" The dragon projected a complex mix of emotions: uncertainty, hope, pride, and something that might have been affection. "Your species is insane," it said through their link. "Absolutely, gloriously insane," Sarah grinned. "Yeah, it's our superpower." The talks continued through the night, and by dawn the framework was in place. Earth would become a nexus, a meeting ground for species that had forgotten how to meet. Humanity would gain access to technologies beyond their wildest dreams, but more importantly, they would gain perspective. And the four species, each locked in their own version of perfection, would gain something they had lost: the ability to surprise themselves. It wasn't perfect. There were protests, fear, those who saw only invasion where Sarah saw opportunity. But there was also wonder, excitement, the human spirit rising to meet the impossible with a cheerful, "Why not?" Within a month, the first hybrid buildings rose in the Utah desert. Draconian organic architecture that grew rather than was built. Zephyrian energy fields that turned sunlight into matter. Mechanist calculation engines that solved problems before they were asked. And threading through it all, human creativity, human dreams, human chaos, making it all somehow work. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the primary research facility, watching human and alien minds work together. Her own transformation had progressed, her awareness expanding in ways that should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only excitement for what came next. "Regrets?" Echo asked, joining her at the window. Sarah thought of her old life, her job at Apex, the small dreams she had once had. "None," she said firmly. "I was fired from a job. I found a purpose." Below them, a human child played with a young Zephyrian, their laughter mixing in frequencies no single species could produce. A mechanist taught origami to fascinated Draconians, showing them how inefficiency could create beauty. And in the deepest labs, Hunger That Walks worked with human philosophers, exploring what it meant to be satisfied. The universe had come knocking, and humanity had done what it did best. It adapted. It thrived. It looked at the impossible and said, "Let's make a deal." And in that moment, Sarah knew that everything was about to change. 2 years had transformed Earth into something unrecognizable. Sarah stood atop the new Singapore Spire, a structure that grew from the ocean like a living crystal, part draconian biotechnology, part human ambition. The city below pulsed with 1,000 different energies. Humans and aliens working side by side in ways that still seemed miraculous. Her own transformation had progressed far beyond her initial exposure to Echo's blood. She could perceive 12 dimensions now, think in probability clouds, and her body could shift between states of matter when needed. Yet she still felt fundamentally human, still craved coffee in the morning, and laughed at bad jokes. "Integration Director Martinez," a voice chimed through frequencies only she could hear. Your presence is requested in Council Chamber Prime. Sarah sighed. 2 years ago, she had been an unemployed biochemist. Now she was Earth's primary liaison to 4 alien civilizations, a job that no training could have prepared her for. She thought fondly of her simple cardboard box from Apex, wondering if they had replaced her yet. The council chamber existed partially outside normal space, a compromise between the various species' environmental needs. Sarah shifted her perception as she entered, adjusting to the swirl of possibilities that allowed a dragon, a being of pure energy, a living equation, and an embodiment of hunger to exist in the same room. Echo was there, now serving as the draconian ambassador. Its scales had taken on new hues since living among humans, patterns that told stories no single species could read. Serenity flickered in her corner, her energy state calm but alert. Analyzer Prime existed as a geometric fractal that made Sarah's enhanced brain itch. And hunger that walks, well, it lounged in something that might generously be called a chair, looking almost satisfied. "We have a problem," Calanthor announced without preamble. The Elder Dragon had remained in orbit, but his hologram carried the full weight of his presence. "The Void Hunters have found us." Sarah felt the room temperature drop, though she knew it was psychosomatic. The Void Hunters were the bogeymen of galactic civilization, a species that consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence. They were why the Draconians had been exploring, why the Zephyrians had developed their defensive technologies, why the Mechanists had abandoned physical form, and why Hunger That Walks had been feeding for so long. "How long?" Sarah asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. 6 months, perhaps less, Analyzer Prime calculated. Their scout signatures appeared at the edge of the Oort cloud 3 days ago. "Then we run," Serenity sparked. "Evacuate what we can. Preserve the knowledge gained here." "Run where?" Echo challenged. "They've found the Nexus. They'll follow wherever we go." Sarah listened to the ancient beings debate, their fears palpable. Each had survived the Void Hunters by avoiding them, by being too small or too mobile or too strange to be worth consuming. But Earth had become something else. The integration had created a beacon of possibility that drew attention from across the galaxy. "What exactly are these Void Hunters?" she interrupted. "Beyond the folklore and fear, what do we actually know?" The aliens exchanged glances, surprised by the question. It was Hunger That Walks who answered, its voice carrying the weight of eons. "They are entropy given purpose. They believe the universe is a mistake, that existence itself is an aberration to be corrected. They consume not just life, but the possibility of life. So they're philosophical extremists with really big guns," Sarah summarized. "And nobody's ever tried to talk to them?" "Talk?" Calanthor's projection rippled with disbelief. "They are antithesis. Ending. There is no communication with Void." Sarah stood, pacing the impossible space. Her enhanced mind pulled up every scrap of data they had on the Void Hunters, sightings across millions of years, civilizations that had simply ceased to be, patterns in their movements that suggested not randomness, but purpose. "Echo," she said suddenly, "show me your memory of when your people first encountered evidence of them." The dragon projected the memory into the shared space. A draconian exploration vessel finding a world not destroyed but erased. Reality itself worn thin where a civilization had been. But Sarah saw something else in the data, patterns her hybrid perception could parse. "They're not destroying randomly," she said. "Look at the quantum signature. They're searching for something." Analyzer Prime's form shifted, processing. Analyzing. Confirmed. Each erasure event correlates with specific quantum frequencies. They are following a pattern. "Of course they are," Sarah laughed, the sound sharp and human in the alien space. They're not destroyers. They're gardeners. They think they're weeding reality. She turned to face them all, her form shifting between states as excitement took hold. Don't you see? They believe existence is wrong, but they're still part of existence. That's a contradiction. And humans, we're really good with contradictions. You cannot seriously be suggesting we attempt diplomacy with the Void Hunters, Serenity crackled. No, Sarah grinned. I'm suggesting we do what humans do best. We're going to confuse the hell out of them. The next 6 months were the strangest in human history, which was saying something. Sarah led a project that combined every species' expertise with human chaos theory. Draconians grew ships that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Zephyrians created energy patterns that spelled out jokes in cosmic background radiation. Mechanists calculated the exact frequency of absurdity. And Hunger That Walks, in perhaps the strangest partnership, worked with human philosophers to define the taste of paradox. The world unified in a way no threat had previously managed. Not just humans and aliens, but every human culture contributed. Zen koans broadcast in gravitational waves, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories encoded in quark spin, Internet memes translated into fundamental forces. When the Void Hunters arrived, reality itself hiccuped. Sarah stood on the bridge of the synthesis, humanity's first truly hybrid vessel. It was part grown, part built, part calculated, part dreamed into existence. Around her, a crew that would have been impossible 3 years ago worked in perfect chaos. A human pilot whose neurons interfaced directly with draconian navigation systems. A Zephyrian weapons officer who painted targeting solutions. A mechanist engineer who composed efficiency like music. And Hunger That Walks manning communications, because irony was now a tactical advantage. The Void Hunter fleet emerged from non-space-like wounds in reality. Ships, if they could be called that, which existed as absence rather than presence. Sarah's enhanced senses recoiled, then adapted, finding patterns in the anti-patterns. Open a channel, she ordered. All frequencies, including the ones that don't exist. Channel open, Hunger reported, though I taste only emptiness. Sarah stood, feeling the weight of 2 worlds and 4 civilizations on her shoulders. Then she remembered her last day at Apex, the security guard escorting her out, and laughed. "Attention, Void Hunters," she broadcast. "This is Director Sarah Martinez of Earth. We're new here, so forgive us if we get the protocols wrong. We understand you believe existence is an error. We'd like to discuss the nature of that error. Specifically, we'd like to ask, if existence is wrong, and you exist to correct it, doesn't that make you the wrongest thing of all?" Silence. Then, for the first time in recorded history, the Void Hunters responded. The voice was absence-given sound, a communication that tried to negate itself as it spoke. "You query paradox. This is not anticipated." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Sarah replied. "We're humans. We specialize in the not anticipated. Like, for instance, we've figured out what you're looking for. The source of the error, right? The first mistake that led to existence?" The void ships paused in their approach. "You know?" "We calculated it," Analyzer Prime interjected. "The quantum frequency you seek. The original anomaly." "We tasted it," Hunger added. "The flavor of the first moment." "We remembered it," Echo continued. "In the songs of our ancestors." "We became it," Serenity concluded. "Energy learning to think." Sarah smiled. "And we created it, humans, because that's what we do. We take nothing and make something. We find the impossible and make it Tuesday. The original anomaly? It's choice, the universe choosing to exist rather than not. And every time we create, every time we choose, every time we look at entropy and say, not today, we're making that same choice." The Void Hunter fleet hung motionless. Reality held its breath. You seek to end error, the absence voice spoke. But error is choice, is existence, is error, is choice, is... The communication devolved into a feedback loop, paradox feeding on itself. Yeah, that's going to happen, Sarah said conversationally. See, the thing about trying to correct existence is that you need to exist to do it. And the more you try, the more you prove that existence wants to exist. It's like... She paused, grinning. It's like getting fired from a job you hated anyway. Seems like an ending, but really, it's just the universe making room for something better. Around them, space began to do impossible things. The Void Hunter ships flickered, their perfect negation interrupted by the virus of possibility. Human chaos, alien order, and the fundamental absurdity of being combined into something unprecedented. We offer an alternative, Sarah continued. Instead of erasing existence, help us make it weirder. You've spent eons trying to solve a problem that isn't a problem. It's a joke. And the punchline is us, all of us. Existing despite logic, thriving despite entropy, choosing despite futility. One by one, the Void Hunter ships began to change. Not disappearing, but transforming. Absence becoming presence. Negation becoming creation. Sarah watched in awe as beings of pure ending discovered beginning. This is unprecedented, Calanthor's voice whispered across dimensions. They're choosing. That's what happens when you show someone a mirror, Sarah replied, even if they're the absence of reflection. The lead Void Hunter ship approached the synthesis. When it spoke again, the voice carried something new. Confusion, perhaps, or wonder. We have consumed civilizations beyond counting, erased possibilities beyond measure, and yet you offer integration? It's kind of our thing, Sarah shrugged. Ask the Draconians, or the Zephyrians, or the Mechanists, or Hunger here. We're really good at taking enemies and making them family. It's messy and complicated and absolutely ridiculous. But it works. Plus, Hunger added with something that might have been humor, existence tastes better with more flavors. The transformation of the Void Hunters took weeks. They had to learn how to exist without negating, to be present without consuming presence. Humans helped, because humans were good at holding contradictions. Artists painted with void-touched brushes. Scientists studied negation as a force rather than an absence. Children played games with beings that had to learn what play meant. Sarah found herself in her apartment one evening, the same one where she'd first brought Echo. The dragon was there, along with Serenity's energy form, Analyzer Prime's fractal presence, Hunger's satisfied absence, and now Null Speaker, the Void Hunter who had first responded to her paradox. I still don't understand, Null Speaker admitted, its form a constant flux between being and not being. You were one individual, cast out from your function. You should have despaired, ended, become nothing. Sarah poured herself a coffee, the simple human ritual grounding her in a reality that had become wonderfully strange. That's the thing about humans. We're really bad at doing what we should. I should have given up. Should have just found another job, kept my head down. Instead, I rescued a dragon in an abandoned factory. Thus, changing the course of galactic history, Analyzer Prime noted. The probability of this sequence of events was effectively zero. Exactly, Sarah raised her mug in a toast. To effectively zero. May we always be impossible. They drank or absorbed or calculated the moment, each in their own way. Outside, the city hummed with hybrid life. The integration centers had expanded to every continent. Humans were spreading to the stars, not as conquerors, but as translators, showing ancient civilizations how to be young again. What happens now? Echo asked. The Void Hunters were the last great threat. What enemy unites us next? Sarah laughed. Enemy? Echo, we just convinced entropy itself to join a book club. I think we need to stop thinking in terms of enemies. She looked around at the assembled beings, her strange, impossible family. Besides, the universe is vast. There are always more impossibilities to make possible. Her phone buzzed. An email from Apex Biotech, of all things. They were wondering if she'd be interested in consulting on their new xenobiology division. Sarah deleted it without reading further. She had better things to do. "I propose a toast," she announced. "To firing, to dragons, to alien ships, to impossible choices and necessary paradoxes, to the human race who looked at the universe and said, 'Hold my beer.'" They toasted, a harmony of species that shouldn't exist, in a reality that defied logic, on a world that had become the crossroads of infinity. And in laboratories across the Earth, human scientists worked with alien knowledge to push even further boundaries. Children grew up speaking languages that rewrote reality. Artists created works that existed in dimensions previously unknown. And in the deepest research stations, teams of mixed species worked on the next impossible project, understanding joy. The Void Hunters had been wrong. Existence wasn't an error to be corrected. It was a rough draft to be edited, a song to be remixed, a joke to be retold until the punchline changed. And humans, messy, chaotic, adaptable humans, were the perfect editors for the task. Sarah Martinez, who had once been fired for thinking too big, now helped coordinate the thoughts of civilizations. She had rescued a dragon and saved the universe. Not through force or superiority, but through the most human trait of all, the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. The stars beckoned with new challenges, new impossibilities, new potential friends disguised as enemies. And humanity, with their alien partners, faced them all with the same indomitable spirit that had carried them from caves to stars. After all, they were only human, and that, it turned out, was exactly what the universe needed.